go through, you start to learn that the golf course is like 8 different businesses wrapped in one, right? Different types of people, different characters that you run into that are just like, I mean, I could go on for days with all the different types of characters that we run into. It's before we switched over to Birrdi, we were just under 20% of the tee times booked online. And, once we rolled out Birrdi, we're up over 90% year over year every time.
Hi, I'm Graham. My two greatest passions in this life are golf and technology. Luckily, my jobs at the minute intersect both of these, as I caddy at Kingsbarns Golf Links in Scotland during the day, and at night, myself and a team of golfers are working on an app called Handicaddie, which is helping golf clubs schedule caddy jobs at the click of a button. While we're on a mission to change the caddying industry, I want to speak to as many cool people creating exciting projects within the game of golf. I really believe the future of the golf industry is bright, and this is the Future of Golf podcast. Back to another episode of the Future of Golf podcast. Today we have Luke Nieuwland, who is joining us from sunny Canada. I believe the weather is still good up your direction, Luke. It is fantastic to have you on. How are you keeping?
Yeah, doing well. The weather is it's not too bad. It just started cooling off, but we've had a great weather ride up until right now, so it's been great.
Yeah. I think good weather for Canadians is very relative, though. I think your good weather compared to what some people would assume good weather is might be a little bit different.
It could be. We're a little bit south of like a lot of people kind of equate to Canada, right? People think Canada, oh, igloos, it must be snowing every day. Like, how do you guys even golf? It's like, no, actually, we got a pretty decent season, 6 to 8 months depending, and we ride it out as long as possible. And I mean, this year it's been exceptional. So
Very good, very good. And just a bit of context to this. So myself and Luke tried this podcast when I was back in St Andrews. So when I was still working as caddy master, and I set myself up at a local pub to record the podcast. And I think we both agree, look, the lighting may have been romantic, but I don't think the Wi-Fi connection was playing well for us. So let's hope we have better luck this time. Seems to be going.
yeah. Your backdrop is not as intimate as it was back then.
It seems like I'm just like the side of the street now or something like that.
Yeah.
It's not as cool, but we'll make do.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, obviously you're a busy man. You're a golf course owner in Canada, and you're also working on a pretty intensive software project. The way I like to frame these interviews sometimes is if you were, sitting in the back of an Uber and the taxi driver asked you, what do you actually do for a living? What what would you tell them?
I own and operate a golf course, and I am a co-founder of a software company called Birrdi. That's an online tee sheet that works with Square, integrates with Square.
There you go. That's very
Yeah.
succinct. See, most people fall into the rabbit hole of telling their life story at that point, whereas you've got
Sure.
it very
Yeah.
surface level. So I like that.
Yeah.
Why don't we start off? Because I'm sure a lot of people will be interested about the life of a golf course owner. How you actually get into that business.
hmm
Do you want to maybe talk to me a little bit about how you actually got into the golf industry itself? So I think you mentioned in the last conversation that your family had some history with a golf club. So do you want to maybe touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are family owned and operated since 1989. Golf course called Whisky Golf Club. I've done everything at the golf course, working there since I was 7. From fixing pitch marks, ball marks, and all the way up to cutting greens, to working in the kitchen, to serving. But majority of my time has been spent on the front lines in the pro shop, as well as doing the marketing at the golf course. So we've been, yeah, my father started the golf course in '89. It's been actually the name Whiskey Run. This is a cool story with that. When we were building the golf course, we're south of Niagara Falls along Lake Erie. So right across the lake is the U.S. And our town's called Port Colborne. We're in Port Colborne, Ontario, Canada.
Mm-hmm.
But the property, when we first building the first 9 in 1989, when the irrigation company was actually drawing out the map, putting in the piping for the irrigation, they kept coming up with like digging up old bottles, like old glass and ceramic bottles, and we come to learn the history of the area, which is actually used for bootlegging during the Prohibition. So the property here, they would store booze, they would run it across the lake to the U.S. during the Prohibition back in the 20s, and bootleg alcohol over to the U.S. from Canada. But the funny part with that, the guys drawing the irrigation, they put on the map basically of where it all was, and then they put at the top of it, because the golf course at the time didn't have a name yet,
Yeah.
they said Whiskey Run at the top. And so my dad saw that, he was like, that's the name, that's the name, that works.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty cool history for the property.
Awesome. It's not a name you'll forget, Whiskey Run.
Yeah.
I'm sure a few of the Irish viewers of this will be running to get some whiskey after viewing the podcast, probably, or running to your golf club maybe in the future. I,
Well, and on top of that, I didn't even mention before, we're actually, because this is relatively new, but we are nearing so close to actually opening a distillery, making our own whiskey.
that would be awesome. I'm a bit of a whiskey
Yeah.
fan myself, so I'd be sold if you did that.
Nice.
And
Yeah.
there is such a tangible element to whiskey and golf as well. So in Kingsbarns, where I work this year, just a few miles up the road, we have a distillery, and
Yeah.
all the Americans in the trip, they'll do St Andrews, Kingsbarns, Carnoustie, and they all stop off in Kingsbarns distillery for a few days
Yeah.
after. In the north of Ireland as well, Bush Mills
Oh,
distillery as
yeah.
well is very well known, and that
Mhm.
happens to be placed right in the middle of three fantastic golf courses as well. So, in my opinion, it's a very good a combination with golf for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when the last decade before COVID, before golf took another like tiger boom, golf was kind of, in the shitter. It was really stagnant, on the decline, lots of places closing. And we were sort of making a decision like we got to think about something else, something to that'll work with the golf course. And I had the bright idea of opening a distillery, not knowing the length of time it would take, because it's going on 4 years
Yeah.
now before we've been able to open this thing. But I thought it just worked perfectly, like you're saying, it works great with golf. I thought it was very conducive working together, so that's why we ran with it.
Yeah, the cool thing about that is it's just an investment into the future of the club,
Hmm.
and it could almost run as a separate business once you build the notoriety. Um,
Yeah.
Usually, from experience, I went up to the north of Scotland and went around all the whiskey distilleries there, and they seem to have built brand loyalty, so they're just going to get repeat customers, and you can almost make it a tourist experience as well. As I say, with beside the golf course,
Awesome.
it seems to work well.
Yeah.
But obviously, that's a separate entity to actually running the golf course, which I'm sure comes with its own strategic challenges and things to do as well.
Absolutely.
So, do you want to maybe talk me through that journey of how obviously your family was involved in running the golf
Mhm.
course, your journey from doing the hard yards in the pro shop, cutting the greens, you were saying, you mentioned you were a
Mm.
keeper for a bit, that journey to then actually, running operations at Whiskey Run. Do you want to talk me through that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as you go through, you start to learn that the golf course is like 8 different businesses wrapped in one. You're a retail business, you're a landscaping business, you're a food and beverage, like restaurant, bar. If you're good enough, you got a nice website where you're selling stuff on, you've got to market it. So you've got all these different avenues that you're looking at lessons too. So you have professional services, you've got events. Like then it's like as you start kind of building that out, you're like, holy shit, this is like there's a lot going on. And so being in the business for the vast majority of my life, I got to see pieces of it. And then, kudos to my father and kind of like putting me into different spots and allowing me to go to different spots, because then I can experience those sides of the business to get a better feel. Because like sometimes when you're in your little pigeonhole, like even in the pro shop, like I know the golf side, I know that, I know the marketing side, but then even like the food and beverage, that's a whole nother animal. So like learning about that and learning how to operate it efficiently, you're just constantly learning. So it's a growing experience, definitely.
Yeah, there seems to be a ton of different disciplines. It's almost like spinning 10 plates at the one time and you're trying to keep balance of them all.
It is, man. It is.
And obviously, at the end of the day, I'd imagine you have a pretty reasonable membership. Like, how many members would we
Mhm.
be talking at Whiskey Run? Like,
Yeah, we over 400.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
you've all them to satisfy, and as well, it's keeping membership satisfaction, but also making a business out of it as well. So what do
Hmm.
you find are, maybe let's start with the most enjoyable part. What do you find is the most satisfying part about actually running a golf course?
Well, I always lean towards the marketing side of it, so that was a lot of fun for me because I can make videos and I've done some fun stuff over the years. So I had the most fun with that. I mean, next is just like interacting with people. You get you get an array of people because we don't not only do we have members, but we also have public players as well. So you get this just a vast array of different types of people, different characters that you run into that are just like, I mean, I could go on for days with all the different types of characters that we run into, and it's great. That ends up making it a lot more enjoyable because even on the some days where you run into somebody who's just a complete jerk, and then next guy rolls through the door is like one of your favorites, and you're just like, hey, that's
Yeah,
lift me back up. I just got my ass handed to me here.
yeah,
So, yeah, those are like my two favorite.
yeah. It parallels exactly to caddying as well. Like one day you'll go out and you get the nicest guy ever, and you'll just have the best of crack the whole way around, and then the next day you'll get a guy who'll just give you yes and no answers the whole way down the first fairway. And at that point,
Yeah,
like, you know your lane, you just know to shut up and keep up for the rest of the day. But you live for
yeah.
those good days. You live for the people that you really connect with, and that is
Hmm.
it almost, it pays off for the days that you maybe don't have as much fun.
For
Um,
sure.
so maybe go into that. Maybe not necessarily the points you don't like, because obviously there's maybe elements of your job that are somewhat mundane and you just have to get done. But what do you
Hmm.
think are the challenging parts? So you obviously mentioned there about the multiple disciplines. Is there anything else that is like strategically difficult about running a club? Probably all of it, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of body of knowledge that you got to know. But I mean, as people are some of the greatest things about the business, they can be also be the most challenging. And some of the hardest things, especially now, is hiring, is labor shortages, is getting people, inspired and motivated to actually to come to work and do a good job. That's typically we've done a very good job of having good retention of our team, but it still has its challenge, especially at the latter part of the season whenever everyone's kind of like
Yeah,
kids are going back to school and your roster gets cut in half or more,
yeah.
and now you're scrambling to find people. It can have like that's very challenging.
Yeah, so the operation becomes a little bit more lean in winter just to deal with the
Hmm.
shortages in staff. I can appreciate
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want to maybe take me back? Because I think a lot of viewers would actually be curious about golf in Canada in general. I think
Yeah.
like I've seen a lot of golf courses and images of golf courses. And actually, my grandmother, I mentioned in the last podcast, she would visit Nova Scotia sort of once every 3 or 4 years. She has a friend over there, and some of the images of the golf courses are genuinely phenomenal. They look brilliant.
Yeah.
So do you want to maybe
Hmm.
give me like a macro perspective of like the popularity of golf in Canada, like participation rates? Like would it be up there in like your top five sports?
It has the highest participation rate of any sport in Canada.
Really?
Golf does.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah. Across the board. So, which is pretty cool. And there are some like phenomenal golf courses all across the entire country. Out on the East Coast, Nova Scotia, like I got the privilege actually to play one of those phenomenal golf courses, which was Cabot Links, Cabot Cliffs, those courses out there. And it's actually like one of the times I actually got to get a caddy because caddying over here isn't really like a standard sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
It's mostly people taking riding carts and doing their own thing. So, but out at Cabot, that they have a whole caddy program as well. So I loved it. I personally loved it. I've only had caddy, it's only so many times when I was a little kid playing in competitive events. But yeah, since well, that's too long ago, anyways.
yeah.
But yeah, it was last year I got to, and that was such a great experience. And I would do it every time if I had the opportunity. That's for sure.
That's awesome. You mentioned Cabot. I've spoken to the caddy master there. So this was a few years ago. It was a guy Jake.
Hmm.
Hopefully Jack, if you're watching, hopefully you're still there holding fort. But yeah, it seems that way. Like I've spoke to actually a few clubs recently um, that want to implement caddy programs in Canada, but it's such an uncommon thing. So it's just,
Hmm.
how do you provide the incentive for a young person to get on board with it whenever there might not necessarily be the demand from members? And then on the
Hmm.
other side, some members might be price sensitive, so maybe they don't want to fork out, $100, $200 to a 15, 16 year old that isn't trained. So it's
Yeah.
building demand from both sides of the market if it's something the players want and if it's something that young people want to participate in. But I've heard from a lot of people that they, especially when they come across to the UK, and for people that haven't hired caddies, like they really enjoy it if they get someone
Oh yeah.
who's knowledgeable, respectful, but also has a bit of crack and can slag them off a little bit as well. I think that
Hmm.
that's what the Americans love when coming across. But yeah, it's cool that
I would agree.
Chicago
Yeah, it's great.
is one of the only clubs out there with a caddy program. That's awesome.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So you say in Canada in general, it's a very common sport. See, I thought Canada, you think ice hockey. That's the
Hockey.
first thing
Yeah.
that comes to my head. So that's really interesting. There's more people playing golf than ice hockey.
For sure. I mean, you can think about it too because it expands like generations. Whereas like hockey, most people are hanging up the skates, and when they're younger. Whereas they're just pulling out the golf clubs then, and it lasts for a lot longer time.
True. And I think
Hmm.
that's maybe leading into another part of being a manager is you're going to see these kids coming through like your junior membership at like, what's your youngest member, for example, at the club at the minute?
Yeah, 11 years old.
11. So you're going to see
Yeah.
these guys coming through from 11, and hopefully you can retain them for
Hmm.
your whole life. So they're members at 70. Is
Yeah.
that sort of your vision with it? You want to try and like hold on to the junior membership as much as possible?
Yeah, I mean, retention's huge. We want to build it out as much as possible. That's for sure. I want to keep people around as much as possible. I mean, that's partly why I kind of went down with the tech space because utilizing being on the front line the whole time, the pro shop, I got to use the tech day to day, and I think over 10 years, I tried or implemented five different systems, five different point of sale T sheet systems, and that I was struggling. And actually, 2019, that's when I kind of got fed up with the golf industry technology and
Yeah.
went out on my own, kind of.
I
Yeah.
think you've teed up the transition too well. Look, you've made my job easy. So obviously, look, your job is multidisciplined at the minute. So you've obviously running a golf club, but you're on a
Mhm.
journey with the app Birrdi at the minute.
Mhm.
So was it just a problem that you came across with current golf systems out there? Is that sort of what inspired you to actually get into it and start building something of your own?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Because all of them, and even still to this day, then when I keep looking at it, they all look the same. They all act the same. They all build their own in-house point of sales, which are extremely difficult to do. And what I realized that so this was 2019, I was just fed up with it, and I said, okay, like I gotta find something else. And a coach slash mentor of mine told me about Square. So if you guys, Square's in Ireland, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, so when I went down that rabbit hole, spent a bunch of time learning about Square, I was like, okay, yeah, this is exactly it. Because one of the things I really wanted to do was implement a loyalty program that could work across my entire operation and online. And that was like not a chance with the current software state of what was going on. And so from there, I was like, okay, we're going with Square. Like, let's go. And the problem, though, was that there was no online tee sheet. There was no tee sheet booking system for golf that was connected or integrated with Square. So from there, I was literally ready to go back to paper and pen. We were just gonna do it. Yep, I'll use Square and just go paper and pen. Let's go. But luckily, I found a co-founder, Michael, who was a software engineer, and he'd already started this, and then we partnered up along with another co-founder named Zach, and we took Birrdi and started running with it at the start of 2020. So pre-COVID, I was already teed up, ready to go with strictly online booking, like really pushing that hard. And COVID kind of helped that bump up, made that transition a little bit easier. I don't know if easier, but more of an easy excuse
Yeah,
to get golfers to do it.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we were just talking beforehand, like the pandemic almost forced golf clubs to implement online booking systems just because they didn't want hordes of people arriving around the tee box at the same time. So I mean,
Yeah.
our home club, they used a booking system for weekend play, but not weekday play. And actually,
Sure.
one of the problems that happened when we didn't have an online booking system was like people would ring up the club to book a tee time, but then they would sort of just throw like 5 or 6 groups into one slot. So what would happen?
Yeah.
You would arrive at the tee, there would be 20 other guys there, and you're thinking,
Oh,
I'm not going to get out for another half an hour here. So like
that's bad.
you're wasting 40 or 50 minutes of your day, and it's sort of it puts you in a bad mood before you're around. Whereas I actually
Yeah, you're pissed off.
I loved it during the pandemic where you could just pick your tea time and know that you're going to get out at that time. It was such a luxury.
100%. It makes everything so much easier, not just for the golfer, but for the operator as well. Because if you're working the front line, you got guys. I've been there so many times pre-online booking, and even with the other systems, I really tried to get them to work. And like my golfers and my members hate me now, right? Because I'm on like system 6 now. But I told them no, we're holding strong with this one.
Yeah.
But like I really tried. I really wanted to get them to do it, but they just so clunky, and it just never worked. Actually, maximum I got was before we switched over to Birrdi. We were just under 20% of the tee times booked online, and once we rolled out Birrdi, we're up over 90% year over year every time. So it's just like when you make the experience a lot simpler, and you have the same thing with your caddy booking system, right? The scheduling system. You want to make things simple, and you make it simple and easy, then it actually gets used. And then when golfers arrive, there's not a massive lineup, because that's what ends up happening. Guys come in, they got to check in, they got to pay, you got to line up out the door, phones ringing off the hook. You're trying to hold on, trying to help people, jumping back and forth. People are getting irritated, and it's just like, shit, man, this sucks. This
Yeah.
experience sucks. Now, book online, paid online, show up, welcome. Here's the first tee. You can, if you have a retail operation, then you have an option or you have an opportunity to actually sell them something to increase the business at your golf course. Like there's so many different benefits to having that booked. It makes everything more convenient and fast.
Mhm. And I
Hmm.
know we were talking before the podcast there. So I mentioned in the UK during the pandemic, there was such a transition from golf clubs between the ones that maybe were still resistant to an online tee booking system. The majority of them then transitioned. So obviously the pandemic was an accelerator for that. You mentioned there 20% of clubs in Canada were using it prior.
Well, that was my tee sheet.
Sorry,
That was
that was
mine.
your TC. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do you
But
think so in Canada in general, would there still be a lot of resistance to using
oh yeah.
online systems?
Yeah, definitely. In North America, like across Canada, the U.S., at golf courses that I talk to, there's still a lot of resistance. It has to do with fear, really, because they don't want to rock the boat with their golfers. They don't want to cause any kind of like issue. This is okay. Now you have to go online. I don't want to go online, and then they fold, and then you have to kind of deal with booking it over the phone and taking tee times and lineups out the door, and this is the problem that sort of ensues, and it's just a perpetual issue that nobody wants to really kind of handle.
The good thing about obviously developing a product for the problem you were working on, you're running a golf club at the time, so you had the perfect place to essentially trial it. So was Whiskey
Hmm.
Run like the first place in time where you actually tried the app and live play?
Yeah, we alpha tested it at my golf course. Yeah, for the first year, and then we opened up a beta for golf courses to try. We had a couple come on, and we literally offered it for free. Like, you want to try it? Just try it for free. Use it for the season. So we had a handful of golf courses like literally use it for the season. And but yeah, my golf course put the majority of the um, work on the software. Yeah, which
Yeah.
was cool. Yeah.
I think that is awesome to be like a manual user of the product.
Hmm.
So whenever I got over to Kingsbarns this season, we trialed the app in live play to run the program, and there was
Yeah.
something just really fun about being the user of your own app, and also
Yeah.
it's very useful because you get to see, the problems that maybe the future users would have, and like any usability errors you can sort of iron out if you are the user. Like sometimes when
Hmm.
you're building software, at least I can be a little bit biased and say, "Oh, that looks great." Whereas when you put it in the hands of users, you'll actually get real feedback.
Yeah.
So for the clubs that were trialing it for the year,
Hmm.
what was their sort of like initial tech or feedback on your product?
Yeah, so I mean, the good part was it was simple. Like a lot of them were just moving to prepayment, so that was like a new thing too. So like keeping the booking system simple, making it effective, like and taking that prepayment, which was relatively new because they were kind of pushed into that situation because of COVID. So that was pretty cool. Like we got a lot of feedback throughout the year and throughout the last 3 years that we've been operating it, from like little tweaks here and there. And it is good to be like boots on the ground, like to actually see it and be using it, because even there's sometimes where people don't say anything, right? They see like there's a flaw or there's something going on that, hey, could you guys maybe do this? But they don't actually end up saying anything. You don't hear it till later. So like having it right at my golf course and using it and being hand in hand with other guys that are using it, it was like instant feedback, so we can make those changes and those switches in real time, and it really improve the product exponentially as opposed to like waiting for those feedback loops.
Uh-huh. So so the product, just obviously we went pretty deep into like the sort of technical side of it there. So for someone in very simplistic terms, I guess what does the Birrdi product do then for someone that's interested?
So it's a tea time booking system that integrates with Square. So golf course tee times, if you're looking for scheduling tee times at your golf course, and you can do it on its own, but it also integrates with Square. So if you're using Square point of sale and the Square ecosystem products that are just like next level. That's one thing about with golf and tech. Like when you're specifically into golf, utilizing like a point of sale built for golf, it's so niche that it'll never really have the capital to back it to be able to move like with the times. So even as something as simple as like adding in like Google Pay, Apple Pay, these different things, like there's no like golf specific software point of sale that's actually going to be like on top of that.
Yeah.
Whereas like a company like Square, with a few moves of a shovel, they get that done. They get it done quick. So you can leverage all of that they have, all the tools they have, and that and the fact they're actually keeping up with the changes.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
And so just to be clear, is there like a login that golfers go into then to reserve their tee times, or is it just an interface for the club at this point?
Yeah, the golfers go in to book their tee time. So this is open to the golfers. It's built first for having the golfer book the tee times. Second, for like the frontline staff or the frontline team members to be booking it as like phone calls and stuff. What we want really at Birrdi is more golfers booking the tee times online, because we've seen the benefit it has for the golfer and for the golf course. And we just actually in this a month and a half ago or so, we just updated that login process, because we used to have email password as which is standard across most applications. We went to a mobile number login, which means it's an SMS. You put your phone number in, it sends you a text, you click the link, you're logged in on whatever device you're trying to log in on. It takes out that having to remember all of your emails and passwords, or if you're one of those guys that have the same password for everything, which you shouldn't. If you are, you should not. But I know a lot of people that do that, so you don't have to do that anymore. You just have a mobile phone and you're good to go.
Yeah, that's a massive value add. I think anything to make the experience more convenient is a super idea.
Mhm.
So what's the current state of the project? Is there a couple of clubs in Canada using it now?
Yeah, we've got between 40 and 50 clubs using it. It's mostly in the US. I'm the only club in Canada that's actually using it. Yeah. So we
That's
alphaed it
awesome.
in the Canadian, but I'm the only Canadian golf course using it. Yeah, it's mostly US. My co-founders are in the US, and that's where it was built out of, where it's engineered. So that's where we're kind of more focused in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Congratulations for getting that many clubs on, and
Yeah.
obviously the
Thanks,
project
man.
is still in its fledgling stage. You're only a couple of years into the journey, and there's a lot more room for growth. And
Yeah, and we offer it like we offer it for free to start. Like you can literally just use a basic T sheet, get in there, use it for free. Like you don't want to connect it to Square, you don't want to have like some more bells and whistles. No, simple, boom, just have your golfers book it. You can do it literally for free.
so my question to all of this is, how do you have the time? You're running a golf club. You're now co-owner of this software company that's
Yeah.
scaling. Where how
And
what's
a
your time?
distillery.
And a distillery. Gee, I did you a disservice there. You've got a
Uh,
distillery as well. So
yeah.
talk to me about like your time management. Like what like obviously golf club is a massive priority, I would assume. And then is
Mhm.
it, how are you sort of scheduling your days around that?
Yeah, it's the golf club, it's Birrdi, and then it's distillery. Distillery being it's still in its very infancy and literally not even open yet. Hopefully soon, next couple of months. We've had delay after delay after delay. That's a whole nother podcast. But um, yeah, I mean, like literally, I've struggled a lot with time management, definitely. And I've got two little ones now. I've got a 1 year old and going on a 3 year old, two boys that demand a lot of time. So I've got my family that I've got to look after, and then I've got these things going on, which I've definitely struggled. I still struggle to a certain degree, but I think over the last 2 years, even more so lately, I've become a lot better at scheduling those blocks of time, getting work done, getting focus work done. And now I get up earlier too. Like you just have to. I was never an early riser. I was never. I didn't like it. I liked late nights. I could be up late till whenever. Not like partying or anything, but if I need to work on something, work on it till 2, 3 in the morning, no problem.
Yeah.
But it's kind of forced my hand to become now. I'm up at like 5:30 most days, which is like not too out of the way because with the golf course, you're up that early anyways. If you're open in the club,
Yeah.
it extends my entire year as opposed to just like that few
Yeah.
months of early days. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still very on the other end of the spectrum, so I'd be a late night owl.
Yes.
I've came to the library actually to record this, so
Ah,
um,
nice.
I'll be pretty much here to like 2 or 3. But this is the thing. I think I'm actually most productive at nighttime. I don't know
For sure.
whatever way I'm wired. I just feel almost more attentive, and you almost feel like the stress of the day is gone once you get to
Hmm.
that point. You can just focus singularly on a task, whereas the morning I sometimes feel you're maybe focusing on other things that still to happen in the day.
Yeah.
Um,
100%.
so yeah, time management must be a massive thing. Like, do you have an assistant to sort of like work out your times, or is that all on you?
No, I should, but no, it's all me. I should. That's for sure. But no, yeah, I just do it all myself, and yeah, that's how I use my calendar. I use my Google Calendar to block off everything that needs to be done, and that's how I send myself reminders. I use all the Google stuff to remind me as much as possible about different things, different tasks, and or else it gets lost in the wind.
Yeah, I'm surprised you have time for this podcast. To be honest,
It's in the
ironically,
calendar.
exactly, it's in the calendar.
Yeah.
So back to Birdie. So sort of if we look zooming out from like a 5, 10 year perspective, like where would you like Birdie to be positioned in terms of the impact it makes on golf clubs? So if you could sort of, look to a point in the future, like what is your, I guess, overarching ambitions then with the project?
Well, I'd want every golf course using it. Uh, not realistic, but that's the goal. Get as many golf courses as possible utilizing it and seeing the leverage that you can have when they use something like Square. Because having gone through that route, and even with all the different promises that these other companies have made me over the years with their point of sale and their restaurant software and yada yada, and it's just like, man, just get to Square and then move on. Like let's go. Nothing ever really kind of bridged that gap like Square did. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's almost like clubs are starting their progress underground, whereas at least you've got them to surface level and then they can work up. You've
That's
done
right.
all the work through the integration and then you can just go from there.
Yeah. I've
So
spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time like trying to make those things work. Like you said, I can bring them to that base level, and then they have everything there to make them jump to that next level, like for sure.
Exactly. That's awesome. And amidst all this, do you get time to play a bit of golf yourself?
Not much, no. No, I just maybe I don't know how many rounds have I played, and these are 9-hole rounds. I don't play 18. So like, I think maybe I've gotten it, and it's actually pretty good. It was better than last year. I think I got a dozen in this year, and I love golf, love it. I love playing. Nothing better than hitting a pure shot that does what you want, or at least what you pictured it doing. May not end up how you wanted, but it pictured that shot and it goes like there's the feeling. It's
Yeah.
glorious.
It can hook you in for sure.
Yeah.
I need to get the pitcher side of it better, because I can sometimes hit it where I picture it and it still goes in the water. It's just my picture before the shot is incorrect.
Yes.
So we get that nailed down.
Yeah.
Look, that was awesome to go through your sort of journey through the golf industry, and the success of your product so far.
Thanks, man.
I guess final question. Obviously, your life has been ingrained in the golf industry. So, for someone that wanted to pursue a career or a passion within the golf industry, what advice would you give to them?
Get started. Get in there. Find a golf course. Golf course maybe you like, maybe that has an area that you're interested in, depending on what they want to do in golf, right? If they want to be on the maintenance side, do you want to be like in the pro shop? Do you want to be, in the restaurant, in the bar? Like what kind of area do you find yourself most like drawn to? And then sort of implant yourself in. And the way to and if I was doing it, if I was jumping in, like for what I'd want to see from anybody coming to work for me, is to sort of bring ideas to the table, different things that they think might work here, there. Like even if it gets shut down 99% of the time, they use that one. Like there's a guy that works for me that just like, he brings ideas to the table. It's great. Like, so we discuss it all the time. We have good conversations about different things that we can do to make things better. And he's been hanging around with us, and hopefully I keep him around next year again too, because he's a smart dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a big thing that stood out in our conversation today, look, is that you don't operate out of fear, but you operate out of what you see the future to be, and then implementing solutions in order to get to that future quicker. And I think a lot of people could learn things from that approach. I think it's
100%.
I think it's the approach that I would tend towards if I ever was a manager or an owner of a golf club. And I think what you're doing is very admirable. Obviously, running a solution and managing your life around it. So, thanks for watching another episode of the Future of Golf podcast. To make sure you don't miss another one, click subscribe, and to track my personal progress at Handicaddie, check out handicaddie.com and visit our links in our social, all down below.